Hi, everybody. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn record on during our live Zoom session today. Fortunately, with technology, I can just go back and teach the lesson again. So that's what I'm going to do. I like to make sure that you have that opportunity to go back and review things I said. What did she say about, anticipatory activities? What was that thing? And that you really have the chance to participate. So I'm going to record this. It'll be a lot shorter, probably, because we won't have as many interruptions, with people chatting and talking. And I'm sorry you missed that aspect of it. But you can also reach out to peers and, ask them what they took away from today's class as well. So in Blackboard, I sent out a file folder for today, and it has the PowerPoint that I'm going to be using. It has the reading file, and it also has a worksheet that we wouldn't have done as a worksheet in class, of course, but in this environment, I like to give you everything so you can, type on and write on. So I would suggest that you go ahead and get those documents open so that you can follow along. I'm going to share my screen and share my lecture. Here we go. So when we talk about reflection, we're talking about having students build meaning from the content. You're not the reading teacher. It's not your job to make sure if they can actually read and those types of things. But it is your job to make sure they're understanding the content. And a lot of times you're giving them the content in ways that they're reading it. And so whether it's reading a lecture, whether it's reading a chapter in the textbook, whether it's reading a brochure that you gave them, like in driver's ed, it's important that they reflect on what they read for many reasons, and then we'll discuss that. So the first thing I want to talk about is that reflection is really the last part of our learning cycle. We talked about how we prepare our students to learn, especially with new content. We talked about all the ways we can guide them as they're learning or they're reading or writing things. Now we're going to talk about how they can reflect on what they learned so that they're constructing new meaning. That's the point of reflection. Reflection isn't just, these are the 5 things that she talked about in the lecture and I read the PowerPoint slide. Reflection is, these are what she talked about and this is what I feel about it. This is how I would use it. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like. Reflection is personal. So we have students to reflect as a formative way to check for their understanding, but we also have them reflect to apply the content. A reflection shouldn't just be, tell me the 3 things you learned today. They're going to just look at what they wrote down in their notes and type it back. And then later on, they're not going to be able to tell you what those 3 things were. If you ask them to tell you 3 things and give examples and apply it, they might remember them. It helps us perceive as teachers what was effective, what we may need to teach or reteach, all of those things. So the 5 forms of reflection that I like to talk about that your book mentions as well is discussion, reaction, performance, critical literacy, and of course, technology. The most popular way that we ask students to reflect, especially in secondary education, is discussion. So, hey guys, did you enjoy the reading? Right? Let's discuss. Why do you think this person did this? Why do you think it's bad to do this? And we just ask all learners to participate. But a lot of times, especially in discussion boards, they end up just repeating each other. And so there are multiple strategies to help with discussion in your classroom. Your book, I think, mentions fish bowls and Socratic seminars, but there's also ways to do it using technology that we'll talk about as well. The most important thing for a discussion is to make sure that whatever you're having kids talk about is related to the objectives in some way, because you can use it, as an assessment tool. I would really encourage you to take a look at Socratic seminars in YouTube and look at the different ways teachers do them. Even if you hated them as a student, there are multiple ways of doing it. So maybe your teacher just did it in a way that you don't like. But fish bowls and round robins are also ways to have discussion that are a lot of fun. Like you guys enjoyed the jigsaw. That's another way to do discussion. Reaction asks students to emotionally respond. Yes, you can talk about the clarity and content, but more than likely, we're asking students to respond to the evidence. Was it reliable? Do you think it is possible? Do you think it's real? Do you believe it? You're asking students to both explain their knowledge and their evaluation, which older learners like. Somewhere in middle school, kids move out of the pedagogical mode of learning into the andragogical. They want you to make sure that you understand that they have life experience and that it matters. And that is important for them to connect and have that personal connection to the topic. So reaction is a lot of fun. You could have kids just do a checklist, react to the topic before, after, or during reading. You could have kids perform a debate. You could have kids do a court case, pick sides, fun stuff. Performance goes into a little bit of what I just mentioned. A lot of times in this class, I get music and art and dance and foreign language, which are all really heavy performance subjects, and physical education too. But my students that teach, history and English and science and math will say, well, that's not really a performance topic or class. Yeah, it can be. The thing with performance is whatever you're asking students to do, if you're asking them to perform a skit, if you're asking them to create a big poster, create a science thing, create a news article, if you're asking students to create a video, that's really popular today, you must give them a rubric. They must know what a bad video is and a good video, because we're helping them both build their reflection skills, and you're also helping them learn where they fall, because they may think what they've turned in is really good. And then you look at it and you're like, this is the worst one I've ever seen, because you have so much experience and they don't. So tell them what the good and the bad is for a performance. Critical literacy is, by another name, multicultural education. For 40 years, we talked about multicultural education, and we talked about it over and over and over with teachers, and all people focused on was race, black and white. So we've moved away from multicultural education to social justice. How can we be fair and equitable to everyone in any different social aspect? It could be their culture, their language, their socioeconomic status, their religion. It could be the neighborhood they live in. It could be where their parents work, wherever they are socially. It could be their baseball team. We consider all of these things when we are having students evaluate and reflect. So you might say, okay, guys, I want you to do a book report on a famous athlete. Well, then you get all these book reports back, and one child has chosen a local athlete that plays at ODU. And you're like, well, that's not really like what I was expecting. I thought you'd pick somebody that was like national level. And then you think, oh, wait, this student is an ODU student. Their parents went to ODU, and the grandparents went to ODU. They're really part of the social movement at ODU, and that's a big part of their life. So when I said pick an athlete, they instantly went to their personal life and what's important to them. And maybe just because the person isn't a national athlete, it doesn't mean that they're not important. And so you've asked students to really be critically literate of what they're talking about. You've asked them to consider people outside of their group and inside of their group. When I'm trying to get my students to critically think about a topic and consider social justice and race, I use these questions. So after they've read an article, how does it make you feel and why? Because the way a person responds is 100% related to who they are as a person and their culture. Well, whose interests are being served? That's always a good one. Are the messages realistic? And I would add, who are they realistic for? Because there are groups that things just don't work for. Technology, in this class, I used to use blogs for reflection, and I stopped doing that because students were like, the technology aspect's really just getting too much for me, and it became an extra layer. So now we do them in Blackboard, but you could have students do vlogs where they video themselves, and I have an activity that we do at the end here that is a type of vlog. You could also have kids just do podcasts for reflection. You could have students use social media using hashtags. Like, for instance, if you're reading an article on global warming and you wanted kids to kind of read what others think and also, reflect, they could type in hashtag pro global warming and see what other people that are tagging that are saying. And they could also, depending on how they feel, write a post and tag it pro global warming. Social networks as communities of learning in Edmodo. You also have a lot of other websites today that have been set up to connect children with other children like them globally. So you could have students like in Japan, like another 5th grade class in Japan, you could have them reflect together and share the same feelings and see if there's a difference there. I like to use iPads. iPads are great for taking pictures and creating on Glogster collages for reflection. Find 12 pictures that are about global warming you could really see where students are in their understanding of global warming by the pictures they choose. So the lesson that we used today in class to kind of demonstrate the learning cycle and reflection was on bionic trees. And it started with, the question, the driving question, should humans use genetic engineering? So if we were in class, I would have written this on the board, and I would have had you go to corners, whether you say yes or no, and really discuss it to kind of get your inquiry going. And then I would walk you through brainstorming and kind of doing that pre-reading part, the anticipation guide, also preparing, reading the actual article, but with an organizer to help you with the information because it's new content, you may not understand it. Then going back to the anticipation guide after you've read and learned to see if you've changed your mind. And then at the end, doing a big discussion web to really finalize our reflection and understanding of the topic. And so that's what I'm going to walk you through today. So the first thing that we did was we went to All App to have students really share what they know about genetics. So this was our All App page, and if you want to get to it, I sent you the URL in the PowerPoint, but there's also a QR code, and so you can scan that and you can get to the page. And students here just used the text button or the draw button to put anything at all that they know about genetics here on this board. All board is really fun. It's like a big whiteboard, basically. And so we had Isaiah draw a dinosaur. And then we had other people add stuff like, I know about Y chromosomes, DNA, genetics can't be modified. It starts with the letter G. That was mine, by the way. We had a helix here, a double helix. If we come down here, there's more double helix on here. And then Punnett square. So lots of information that people knew about genetics. And so this is just one way to integrate reflection right into technology and right into your lesson in a quick way. All App doesn't even require a login if you don't want to. It's a fun one. So after we did that, we came back and we looked at the worksheet that I put in Blackboard. So under genetics activities in Blackboard, you have this document. And this document has an anticipation guide, and you were supposed to do the before highlighted category here. And you're just stating whether you agree or disagree with the topics. Not based on any feelings, just make a decision whether you agree or disagree before we start talking about the topic. If we had been in class, I would have had you kind of group and kind of discuss and really debate back and forth about it, because you don't want to just give it and then ignore it. You want to make sure that you're explaining everything. And so back to the lecture, as I said, you want to compare, do kind of like a think, pair, share, and discuss the responses and kind of come up with the reasons why. I would have high school kids do that like on a whiteboard, a chalkboard, smart board, that kind of thing. And then I would tell students, okay, fold the before part off of your anticipation guide and put it aside. And then the next thing we would do after we fold off the before category is we'd actually read the text. So at this point, you would stop the video, you'd go to the article, and it's right here. It's an old New York Times article, and you would read through it. But while you're reading, to kind of help you with the content, you would be completing another part of the genetics activity, which is right here. It's called the While You Read, and it gives you the 4 main problems discussed in the articles. You would take notes on what the article says the solution is to these problems, and then you would simply state whether you're for or against those solutions. And that would help you guide through the reading. We would come back here to the PowerPoint, and I would show you a video. So as a kind of visual learning of what you read, I would follow up with the video. And we did watch this YouTube video in class, so you can watch it as well. And then we would actually discuss. So we would pair up and we would talk about, what the solutions were as a class, whether we agreed or disagreed with them. If I had kids in class, I would have them do tally marks. I'd put kids into 4 different groups by problem, fill out what all the solution and notes are, and then within that group, tally who was for and against it. So say I had 6 students in my heavy metal in the soil group, 1 was for and 5 were against. I'd put that up there on the board. And then we would kind of look at as a whole where we fall as a class. And then we would discuss where we differ. So, wait, okay, there's 3 people that are for and 3 people that are against. So talk about it. Why are you for it and why are you against it? What's your evidence? And then we would come back together and we would use the final discussion web to really think about the issue at hand and to really discuss. The discussion webs are set up so you have 2 conflicting topics, like the people that are for and the people that are against, or the pros and the cons. And students oftentimes see 4 boxes and try to balance it, and you don't have to do that. Don't ever ask students balance it because there won't be equal reasons on either side. Have them fill it out the best they can, and we'll look at it together on our worksheet here. And so at the end, I'd have students, share all the reasons why people agree, all the reasons people disagree. I'd have us fill it out. I'd probably have us do some pictures, some research. And then for conclusion here, I would have each individual student write a paragraph as to what their conclusion is. Where are you in the scheme of things? Are you on the agree side or disagree, and why? And make sure to cite the reasons from above. You could have students do that in a blog or a vlog or a little video. It doesn't have to necessarily be written here on a worksheet. So after we went through that, I would end my lesson with my students by having them come back here, and remember they folded off the before section, and I'd have them now state, after they've done the reading, if they now agree or disagree with these topics. Then I'd have them unfold it and see if they changed their mind and why. And we would talk about that as a group. Might have them do like cups with toothpick sticks or something, popsicle sticks, and have them go through and move their popsicle sticks from agree or disagree to give them some kind of visual aspect of that. And then we would go through and we would really discuss why the topic exists and why we feel the way we feel. I, at the end of this lesson, asked you 3 questions. So how are you prepared to read the reading that was kind of hard and new to you and not part of your major? How did I guide you? And then what strategies really helped you foster a response? Which ones did you like? I asked students to then do their own reflection. And so the reflection is one that I chose using technology, and it's using video. It's called Flipgrid. And my Flipgrid allows me to record a video response real quickly from my device. So I can hit record a response. Hello. I hit this little record button. Man, I think reflection is important for my students because X, Y, and Z, and I would use it in my class in this way. Then you hit next. You can add all sorts of fun little like words and filters and stickers and really just like Snapchat, Instagram it up. You take a selfie. There you go. And then you hit next. It'll walk you through saving the video and publishing it. Now I'm the creator of this Flipgrid, so it probably will give me an error message. Nope, it did it. So we can see here that Kaylee, Josh, Kylie, Michaela, they've already done theirs. And so if you wanted to click on another friends, you can. There's Kaylee, and I've got more options here because I'm a teacher, but you can also reply back with video, and it's a lot of fun. So I asked students to kind of end their class by reflecting on reflection and what you learned today. I sent out the QR code as well as a link, but I'll put it up here as well. So there's the QR code that you can scan right now and you can get to it. And then here's my end reminder for the end of class today. So complete the learning reflection based upon what we learned and turn that in Blackboard. I think I have your due date set on Mondays, just give you time. Make sure quiz 9 is completed. And also next week we're doing chapter 10, which is writing. Chapter 10 is just great because we're talking about, you're not an English teacher. Not everything needs to be a research paper. Yes, schools are going to say kids should be writing in every class. You have to have writing assignments. But you don't need to assign research papers. And we're going to talk about a lot of low stakes, fun writing activities you can do with kids that take out that whole, everything's a 5-page research paper. Nobody wants to read all of that. And we can also talk about assessment as from a non-English teacher standpoint. Because it's not your job to make sure if they can use commas correctly. That's the English teacher's job. And so that's what we'll talk about next week. And we'll also begin to start talking about the project as well. So I apologize that Zoom wasn't recorded. I'll make myself a little sticky note and I'll put it on my computer and it won't happen again. But I hope this video was helpful. You can totally email me anytime and ask questions. I'm always here to help. If something wasn't clear, just ask me to, re-explain it in a different way, and we can always chat and talk about it. I hope you guys have a great afternoon, and I will see you next week. Bye.